chevalier, pas de travaux, notre modernity.
We all have dreams and goals that we thought will take us to somewhere. Where? Some of us know the exact details. Some of us simply don't know anything. But there are times you realize that you end up returning to where you started, whether intentionally or not. As I get to see and experience more, sometimes I find going back to the starting point might not always mean a setback. It could simply be a journey of realization, realizing that you already have what you always wanted to have without knowing it or appreciating it. Sometimes there will be second chances to reappreciate these things, but sometimes it will be too late, like the candle burned out in the wind.
Good morning everyone. It's our last day here in Nice, and then later today I'll be flying back to Paris. Yeah, it's kind of raining again today. So essentially the first day was stormy, second day rainy, third day was sunny, which very fortunately was dedicated to Monaco. Now one of my favorite countries in the world. And then last day, of course, well, raining again. There are reports that there has been a strike at the airports in France. Yeah, nothing gets more French than that. I'm actually in an old city now. There's still one place I haven't checked, and that's the main cathedral in Nice. So I'm gonna go check it out before I leave this city.
Yep, it was on the last day I found out that the main cathedral of Nice is the one hidden in the old town, rather than Basilique Notre-Dame de l'Assomption in the city center. Oh well, I better take a look, but for who knows when I'll get another chance to visit Nice. Afterwards, I took the tram to Nice Côte d'Azur International Airport. Fortunately, the strike did not cause any delay to my flight back to Paris. Okay, let's recap our adventure in France so far. We started in Paris, the capital city of France. Then we visited Lyon, the second largest metropolitan area and France's third largest city. Afterwards, we visited Marseille, the third largest metropolitan area and the second largest city in France. Finally, we visited Nice, the fifth largest city in France. During this trip, I visited the largest, the second largest, the third largest, and the fifth largest cities in France. I think I've seen quite a bit of what different French cities are like, so I can finally tell people that, hey, I've been to France, but not just Paris. What about the fourth largest city in France, which we didn't get a chance to visit? Well, maybe in the future. There's nothing to lose this time. Yeah, there is nothing to lose. Alright, let's get back to Paris, shall we? During the second segment of my stay in Paris, I booked a classic Parisian hotel located inside an Haussmann-style building in my favorite neighborhood, Quartier Latin, the Latin Quarter. The strategic location of the hotel provided me very easy access to many attractions covered by the Paris Museum Pass, which I wasn't able to get during the first segment of our Paris adventure. Remember this place? It happened to be very close to my hotel. Now with a valid museum pass, we can finally go into Le Pantheon, or in English, the Pantheon.
Alright buddies, I am back in Paris. Yeah, since I just got the museum pass at the airport, so right now we're still 1 hour and 30 minutes away from the closing of the Pantheon, so I'm actually gonna go in now and take a look. Actually, to be honest, the temperature right now in Paris is the same as Nice this morning.
By the way, have you ever wondered why the Pantheon looks like a cathedral? In fact, the original architecture was indeed intended to be an impressive cathedral under the commission of Louis XV. However, by the time the building's construction was complete, the monarchy was no longer there. The newly formed revolutionary government decided to turn the grand church, built to impress the subjects of the old feudal empire, into a public monument that also serves as a resting place for citizens of France who made great contributions to the French society.
Now we're going to the crypt. And of course, this is Jacques Rousseau.
Other than Rousseau and Voltaire, you'll find other familiar names inside the crypt. I'll just point out some of the ones that I'm familiar with personally.
Vous connaissez Émile Zola, monsieur?
Il est là.
Yeah, all the famous writers.
The interior of the Pantheon is very interesting if you happen to have the Paris Museum Pass. This could be a great alternative to Notre-Dame de Paris before its reopening. After the visit to the Pantheon, I went to meet Aurélie and her partner, who also happened to be in Paris around the same time after all these years. I had such a great time, and I have to say, my first ever France trip wouldn't be complete without meeting them. They gave me a lot of advices for my last few days in Paris, a city that didn't impress me that much when I first arrived. If you ask me if I believe in miracle, I could tell you that it was Aurélie who single-handedly turned this Paris adventure downside up and made me eventually feel like this is a city I can go back to again and again.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so today we're gonna go to the Louvre, the world famous Louvre. Right beside the hotel, there is an American breakfast place. So far, for breakfast, I think drinking just coffee, espresso, and having a simple croissant really made me want to eat, sausage, bacon, eggs, that kind of stuff. But it actually felt really good. And now I'm ready for the Louvre. Let's go. Alright everyone, so we just got into the main courtyard of the Louvre. So the Louvre was the royal palace before Louis XIV decided that he's gonna expand the palace of the Versailles. And as you can see behind me, that's the famous pyramid, and that of course was designed by American architect I.M. Pei. And yeah, the line is kind of long. Our reservation time is coming in about 40 minutes, but let's see if I have any luck. I can get in early.
5 minutes later.
Alright, good news folks, we're in.
Now we're in the Louvre, the largest and the most visited museum in the world. I've been to many huge museums, including the Hermitage, MoMA in New York, and the British Museum. But I tell you, Louvre is my favorite of them all. Everything on exhibit was so interesting that even someone who's not an expert on ancient Egypt or ancient Greece like myself was having so much fun just by wandering around. I'm actually worse than not being an expert, alright? The only thing I knew about ancient Egyptian stuff came almost exclusively from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yugi boy, it's time to vanish into the shadow room.
Otherwise, I admit that I'm certainly not the best tour guide for the Louvre. But I tell you that the Egyptian collection at the Louvre was pretty impressive and well worth spending some time to check out. Now let's move on to the ancient Greece collection. They were a bit more straightforward to me than the Egyptian collection. For example, these came from the facades of ancient Greek buildings. I was amazed particularly by how detailed these sculptures were, considering that they were from way over 2,000 years ago, at least. Of course, the most famous ancient Greek statue at the Louvre is La Venus de Milo, or Venus/Aphrodite from Milos. This statue has been on exhibit right here for over 200 years now, since it was first discovered on the island of Milos in 1820. At the end of the hallway, you see the other super famous ancient Greek statue here at the Louvre, Winged Victory of Samothrace. This 5-meter tall statue of Nike, the goddess of victory and the namesake of a certain basketball shoe factory, best represents the craftsmanship of ancient Greek statues. Even when some of the critical parts, like the head and arms, are missing. Can you imagine how impressive it must be if it were still intact? There are also other lesser known but beautiful ancient Greek statues you can admire in the same section. This statue is missing something. Can you spot it? As we bid farewell to the mythical goddesses of ancient Greece, we were welcomed by Roman emperors. This hall is dedicated to statues from Italy. Some are old, some are relatively new. I was eager to see Michelangelo's work, The Dying Slave. Yeah, I know, the name doesn't sound pleasant at all. However, it turned out that the statue was absent from the Louvre for some scholars' studies at the time of my visit. Oh well, I guess I can finally explain to others that I did not go to the Louvre to see a dying slave. Other than being more organized and with higher quality exhibits, the other reason why I think the Louvre stood out in compared to MoMA New York or the British Museum is that the Louvre was once a functioning royal palace. And you are still able to see that elegant palace everywhere you go, aside from just checking out the statues and the paintings that mostly come from other countries. Want to see something French? Check out the crown jewels in this elegant hall. I felt like I was visiting the British Museum, the Tower of London, and the Buckingham Palace on one trip. It was around lunchtime, and within this former royal palace, there was only one place to eat. The king's table? You're thinking too much. There is a cafeteria that offered good food with reasonable price. If you're lucky, you might end up getting a table at the terrace, so you can enjoy both the food and some great views of the Louvre Pyramid. After lunch, let's check out the Louvre's painting collection. And speaking of the most famous one, it has to be Mona Lisa. There is one thing you need to know. The line to see it up close is very, very long.
This is the line to Mona Lisa. It's way too long. I'm not gonna see it right up in person. I think from the side you can see it as well. Yeah, I guess if that's the case, then Mona Lisa can't blame me for touching her or hit her. You're lying. I never hit you. You're tearing me apart, Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa is certainly not the only famous painting at the Louvre. You might also have seen this one somewhere before. Liberty leading the people symbolizes the French society's desire for liberty. At the time of its creation, it meant the freedom of oppressions from the monarchy and the church, inspired by thoughts in the Enlightenment era. There are many other great works at the Louvre, which unfortunately I did not have enough time to spend so I could see them all. Now it comes to the fundamental question. Is the Louvre worth the visit? My answer is absolutely. There is a reason why this is the #1 museum in the world. Next time I come to Paris, I'll dedicate a whole day to take it slow and fully immerse myself among some of the greatest artworks in human history. The final collection of artworks I saw at the Louvre were paintings about Napoleon. The most eye-catching piece of them all is the Coronation of Napoleon by Jacques-Louis David. This is a 6 meters tall by 10 meters wide painting, certainly one of the largest paintings I've ever seen. I was totally amazed by how detailed this painting was. In the next episode, we'll look into this painting more closely and then follow Napoleon's footsteps into the military history of France. Stay tuned.